2023 at 6 p.m. Roll call, Manager Falk.
Commissioner Stump,
Here.
Commissioner Atwood,
Here.
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Zona,
Here.
Commissioner Wingren Romano,
Here.
Commissioner Goss,
Here.
President Hagus.
Here, could everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Solicitor Alexander.
Thank you. Today is the day and time scheduled for a public hearing, which is being held to consider public input with respect to a request from the applicant and property owner, Emily Traum, to rezone 1.041 acres of land from R2 residential to C1 commercial. The property is identified as tax parcel number 54-06-16-0-102 and is located at 670 Robbins Station Road. At this time, is there any citizen that would wish to offer input with regard to the proposed rezoning? Please come forward and state your name and address.
Dory Stabile, 12111 Longview Drive, North
Thank-
Huntington. Okay.
Thank you. And this hearing is being stenographically recorded.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So my neighbor Haley let me know that this was going on. I'm right at the end of Longview and Robbins Station Road. For one, I am single, live there, and putting a business in, for one, for safety and also the traffic. And I'm not even sure what the business is. So is anyone able to tell us what the business is beforehand?
What is the business?
There's not anything that's had site plan approval or an application set, but I understand the owner is looking to put in a concrete business. But this is just the rezoning of the property. So once it's rezoned, if it's rezoned to the C1 commercial district, it would be able to be used for any use that's allowable by our zoning ordinance. But I understand it's supposed to be a concrete business, but we haven't received any formal application for that.
Okay, so I don't know how thorough I need to get, but I would vote no as a North Huntington resident. But also because I do remember when the property was purchased, they tried to cut in a driveway on Longview. So that's for us, having that being in the residential area, and I'm assuming they're gonna wanna, be in front of our homes where I don't have children, but they have children, and people already drive fast up the street. So again, being a single, I'm the first house right there on the corner. And I'm also worried about property value. Like I bought this property, I have an acre also in North Huntington. I loved it because it's up off, we're sitting up a little bit off the road. The street is quiet even with the houses all around, and putting a business in there. We already have a Hometown Auto with Dane. He is very respectful of us as residents of the neighborhood, and it can get loud. I just don't see with that being across from us that this isn't going to become a nuisance, whatever type of business. And I would just hope that you would vote no in favor of residents who've lived here their whole lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wish to offer testimony with regard to the rezoning tonight? Please come forward and state your name and address and be sworn in.
Hi, I'm Haley Jamison, 12141 Longview Drive. Spell your last name. Jamison. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I do. We've moved to Norwin, North Huntington 7 years ago. I'm new to North Huntington. As soon as we moved in, we had a quiet greenhouse across the street. Somehow, by that just being commercial, which it probably became commercial business back when there were still apple orchards back there and not a lot of population and everything. So to have a business in that area at the time probably wasn't the same as it would be now. I do have 2 children, 10 and 7, that go to Sunset. I don't want them growing up across from a business. I didn't buy my house with a business, across from a business. Their property was bought with the intent to make it a business. I bought my property with the intent to raise my family, and I don't want my property value destroyed. The added noise, traffic, again, I have kids, they're on the street, you know, like, well, it's too much traffic, I can't have them on the street, but I wish I could, but we're in the driveway and whatever. I don't want the added, you know, everything to the street. It's busy enough, it's noisy enough, it's not really safe, there's, you know. Anyway, that's it. We don't really want it turned to commercial, because if it's a cement company, it could be a bar next, it could be whatever other business then they want to turn it into. So that's it.
Thank you.
to say.
Anybody else?
So my name is Lakin Swinston. I live at 12181. Lakin, Lakin. Swinston, Swinston. I do. So as I said, I actually live 2 houses up from Haley and 3 houses up from Dory. Chad Good is my neighbor, also a business owner. Not that Chad is wonderful, good friend of mine, but I'm worried that if we allow one business at the corner, who's to say somebody else could not do, you know, why couldn't Chad put a business in his house that he has? You know, turning one, there has the potential to do it. Numerous times I've written to, myself and my husband have written to the township for speeding. I live as soon as it gets straight on Longview, so you kind of have to go up a little bit, there's a slope, and then as soon as it gets flat, people speed. If one of my children, I have 2 kids, 5 and 3, and I have 2 dogs. I don't know how many times that I have yelled at cars just because of the speeding. Again, we have the flat, so that road is very, you're not going 25. You're not going 25. With the added business and Robin Station, we all know that everybody flies on Robin Station, everybody. Even turning into Longview, I don't know how many times that you have people skidding behind you because they are not gonna stop, or blowing their horns at you just to turn on your road to get to your house. So again, like Dory said, Dane, there's a lot of noise with Dane Fry. He owns Hodtown Automotive, but love Dane, very respectful, very, you know, he's not working after hours. Wonderful guy to work with, and very respectful, but having another business right there, who's to say, and again, that's another safety issue, but the tree line right there, if this new tenant would take down that tree, we're getting more noise. And like I said, the safety issue. So if they would decide to cut in and take their vehicles onto Longview and in, but ideally, we don't want it. I don't want it. I speak for my husband and myself.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that would wish to offer any testimony with regard to the potential rezoning? Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Would you like to offer anything to the board with regard to the proposed rezoning?
Yes.
Go ahead.
My
State your
name's
name and address, please.
Emily Trom. I reside at 14079 Oakview Drive. Yes. I know the neighbors had brought up a driveway coming off of Longview. Originally, when we bought this property, we were told that it was partially residential, partially commercial, because there was a non-conforming business being run out of it at the time. Our initial plan was to renovate the house that was on the property. Once we got in there, the structure was not safe. None of that was disclosed to us when we bought the property. So our intent was to put a driveway in off of Longview while keeping that driveway off of Robbins Station at the time. So that way we had access to the back half of the property where we were going to put a garage. Since we demolished the house and we had plans to demolish the house, we have since scrapped that. We are not putting any sort of driveway in off of Longview. And our buildings that we would like to put up would be closer to Dane's property line, so that would be farther away from Longview itself. As far as noise, we are planning on just putting a residential concrete company in there. We did have a property off of Route 30 that we were renting where we just literally stored our dump truck and a few machines. Our guys are in and out of there from 6 a.m. and they're done for the night around 7:30, 8 o'clock. So nothing after hours. We wouldn't be running machinery there or anything like that. We are only in our late 20s, so this is a very big investment for us to be doing, so we would be there long term. And as far as the traffic for Longview and Robbins Station, we do have plans to move that driveway that is currently on Robbins Station closer to Dane's property, so that way we can make sure that there is adequate visualization coming off of Longview. I know a few times that I have tried to turn into that driveway myself. I have had people try to turn out off of Longview in front of me and almost hit me a few times because they think I'm turning onto Longview there. So for us, it's just not safe to keep that driveway there. For the property line on there with all the trees, we do plan on taking the trees down, but we do plan on putting a soundproof barrier, like fence, like they almost do with the turnpike, so that blocks everything. And that would definitely help with the automotive shop next door to kind of block some of that noise. And I believe when we were looking at some of the site plan stuff, we had to be like 4 or 10 feet off that property line for screening. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah,
what it was.
there's a buffer, and there's a corner lot that would have 2 front yards. So if it was to be rezoned commercial, you're looking at 50-foot setbacks on both
Yes.
sides. So you're pretty far away from Longview and Robbins Station at
Yeah,
that point.
both of those would allow for us to have about like 50 to, I want to say 75 feet of just blacktop there for us to just be able to park stuff there. So the entrance way would be definitely on Robbins Station. We do have plans, like I said, for screening and for soundproofing on that side.
Does any member of the board have any questions or comments for the applicant?
I do, if I may. Emily, how much pavement are you looking at? You talked earlier, just a few minutes ago, about paving for parking of trucks. What's your dimensions?
I believe it's from Longview, so we have to have a retaining wall there for us to be able to get optimal parking there. So I want to say when we originally did the measurements, it was about 50 foot by 100 feet of pavement.
Okay.
So there is a big chunk of the property there that would be asphalt.
Are you aware of the MS4 program, stormwater management?
Yes,
Is she aware of the MS4 stormwater management that's going into effect? You are.
yes, yeah.
You talked about, you said a lot of trucks. What size trucks are we looking at?
We just literally have one dump truck. It's a 5500 Ram, and then we have my husband's truck, which is just a GMC Jolie. So we just have 2 trucks that we have, and we only employ about 4 to 5 guys.
So why the distance, why of the parking lot, 50 feet by 100 feet? Why do you need something that's that big?
We do snow removal in the winter,
Okay.
and then we also have 2 excavators and a skid loader. And obviously with more plans in the future to be able to purchase more of those. But as far as trucks go and trailers, because we do have a few trailers, so, I mean, we're not looking to bring in any sort of giant trucks or anything like that, but we would need to have parking. In the long run, I know the idea is to be able to actually have a storefront. We have a lot of our clients who like to see samples of concrete. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Ron Blair. He used to have a concrete company off of Route 30. That is my husband's grandfather. So their place was right next door to Thermo King. And he used to have samples of concrete actually poured into the parking lot there so that when people came, they could see different styles of stamps, different color. And that's kind of what we want to do since we've had a lot of our clients ask for that.
Okay. And your business hours?
We are normally operating from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And that would be at this location?
Yes. Sometimes our guys do get back in the area, though, around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night.
Are you guys have a mixer on site where you're going to be mixing?
No. No, this is just for us to have our, like, lumber stored in the building and our machines stored at. That is it.
All right. One last question. You brought up your grandfather-in-law.
Yes.
What happened to his location?
He unfortunately passed away.
Sorry?
And they had sold it whenever the estate was settled to the guy who owns Thermo King. So I know 2 years ago, before we actually bought this property, we looked into buying that property back, and the guy just did not want to sell.
And that's sandwiched in between Thermo King and Bill Fix's Auto Shop.
Yes.
Very
And
familiar. Opposite of that is Colonial Manor.
For
Right.
us, and especially that location, it's just not a safe location for us to even have a business at.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
I have a question. Due to you said you'll do plowing in the winter. Due to that, doing that business also, would that mean in the winter hours that you could be working different hours other than an 8 to 5 or an 8 to 4 or whatever?
Typically, our guys just take the trucks home.
Okay.
My husband keeps snow plow and the snow salter on his truck that obviously comes home, and the other guy that's out with us usually takes his truck home as well. So during the winter, they are not in and out of that building late at night. So typically, when they're on call, they are on call 24 hours. They take the trucks home.
So there wouldn't be activity of vehicles coming and going at 2 or 3 in the morning,
No.
getting trucks? Okay.
No, as far as trucks, maybe my husband in and out of the office, but as far as that, nothing noisy.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple questions. You talk about putting a building. Can you tell me where the building will go on the site and how big it is?
So the building that we were looking to do was a 40-foot by 60-foot building, and it would go and tuck in back into the back of the property. So I know originally, if you can kind of see how it angles in at the back, right behind the house where it was, and it angles back a little bit more, right in between there is where that building would be going.
Okay, and what type of permanent screening, say for noise and to buffer the business from the residential properties, what type of screening are you willing to put in?
I know my husband and I have talked about doing the sound barriers, the ones that they use on the turnpike. We've talked about doing that. We've also talked about putting shrubs and low-growing pines in. For us to have pine trees, especially the ones that are there, the root system's not very deep during a storm. I mean, we're looking at almost pretty much damaging anything that we would end up putting on the property. But whatever, is requested of us, we will do, just because we're not trying to cause a nuisance for the neighborhood. We are trying to make sure that everything is, kind of well kept, noise down, making that intersection safer for the residents in the area. I know it is kind of hard to see coming out of Longview right now, so if we were to do the screening all the way towards, we would probably stop at maybe 50 feet from the end of the road, if not further, just because we want to make sure that that area is safe for people to pull in and out of.
And are you willing to place any kind of deed restriction in your deed so that if you sell your property in the future, that since this is commercial one, any commercial use could be placed there, that would restrict another business from making it more of a nuisance, like somebody putting a
Like an-
bar or anything in
Or
there?
like another auto body place in next door. We would definitely be open to doing that. Because I know, like, for us, that was a concern too, because say we do sell that property later on down the road, who's gonna stop somebody else that's gonna make a lot of noise, or another auto body shop coming in, or like you said, a bar or something that is open late at night.
And my last question is, did you look at any sites that were commercially zoned prior to buying that one?
We did, we looked at a lot of them, to be honest. We set out probably like a 4-year stretch of just looking for properties. And just nothing really made sense for us. It was too far away from where we lived. Even for us to have that property we were renting on Route 30, it was about a 20 to 30-minute drive for us to get there. So for this, it's only about 5-10 minutes down the road for us. So it's a lot closer. And just the price point on the property at the time just fell in kind of into our laps as far as affordability and the size of the lot.
Thank you.
Any other board comment?
I do have just a couple more. When you refer to the soundproofing screening, but you say it's like the one on a turnpike, do you mean those big
They're
concrete
like a
panels?
big concrete panel
Okay.
almost, yeah.
It's just a big panel that's in between some support brackets?
Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question is, when you purchased this, though, you knew it was residentially zoned?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Thanks.
So one thing I have to reiterate is that this is a rezoning request from an R2 to a C1. And based on some of the questions, it just needs to be reiterated that if it is rezoned, and Mr. Fonzie, correct me if I'm wrong, that any permitted C1 business can go in there.
Yeah, I don't know that a deed restriction would curtail a business, much like a restricted covenant in a residential development. The township can't enforce those. Those are like super zoning.
That's correct.
So if it falls under a C1 use in our zoning ordinance, a future owner or current owner will be permitted to utilize anything in that use table.
Correct. Any other further comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did have one question for Director Fonzie. The properties to the south of this property are zone C1, correct?
Yeah, the red cluster there is the Hawntown Auto shop that they had mentioned, and then there's a smaller building. It's been a convenience store, a pizza shop, a salon. I'm not even sure what it is now. A salon, and then the I think it's called the Mark Haven apartment buildings.
So it wouldn't be per se spot commercial. There's some commercial south of the
Per
property.
the current map, no, this would not be considered spot zoning.
All right.
I also have a question for Mr. Fonzie. Can you explain to me what was the non-conforming use before and what ramifications that has on future use?
So when the Gongaware and Perry greenhouse was there, they operated out of on the lot where the Hawntown Auto is, and there were several greenhouses on the property, and that was zone C1. On this lot, there was the house, the original house, that was used as an office for that greenhouse business. And in speaking with other staff members, that house had been in use for that business at least for 50 years. So because it's on a residentially zoned property, but it's a commercial use, it would be considered a non-conforming use on that property. So once they tore down the house, I mean, they could build another house and live on it, but they can't run a business out of there with any new structure unless they have a rezoning.
Once the structure was demolished, the non-conforming status was abandoned.
Yeah, I believe it's 12 months or 18 months after demolition. If they don't reinstate that use that was on the property, it goes away for good.
So it has to be the use of an office building?
It would have to be the use of what is presently zoned.
Yeah, of the nonconformity. If they wanted to change that use, they can go in front of the zoning hearing board to expand or alter the nonconforming use.
Okay, but it would have to have the same footprint for them to rebuild?
Yeah, if it was that same bill, or they could expand it with permission of the zoning hearing board.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. So you're saying the house was residential, But they ran a business out of that house.
I am assuming that house is very old and at one time was an actual residence. But then whenever the Gongaware and Perry greenhouse business was in there, they were utilizing that house as an office for that business, a showroom.
Right, because I
That's fine.
bought flowers out of there, so
Yes.
that's why I know it was a business in addition to the greenhouse that was on the property, but
Yes.
it was more than an office is what I'm getting at. It's more than, okay.
But a non-conforming use is not a non-conforming zoning classification. So you could only continue that non-conforming use as to what it was, and any natural expansion from that. It's not any commercial use that you could put in there. It would only be what was non-conforming, through history, could stay in there.
Any other further board questions or comments? Not, I would just need a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Motion to adjourn? Second.
Discussion? All in favor by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Public hearing adjourned at